There was a man in my robe, in my kitchen, drinking from my coffee mug like it was his goddamn Sunday ritual. I blinked hard, half hoping I'd clicked the wrong date on the footage. Maybe this was an old recording. Maybe this was me. I scrubbed the timeline back, then forward. Nope. There he was again. And again. 3 nights ago. 5 nights ago. 10. Each time, a little more comfortable. Sometimes shirtless, sometimes wrapped in my towels, sometimes walking past the front door like he paid the mortgage. The timeline turned into a horror reel. Then she appeared. She wasn't hiding it. My wife, Cassie, sauntered into frame like it was just another Tuesday. Hair up in a loose bun, pajama shorts, holding 2 wine glasses. She handed one to him and curled up next to him on the couch. I watched her laugh, throw her head back, the way she used to with me, back before her overtime turned into silence. They kissed. She straddled him at one point. I stopped the video there. Not out of mercy, just strategy. You don't scream in a hotel room 3 states from home. You absorb. You calculate. I knew the guy too. Her coworker. One of the ones I'd met at her firm's Christmas party last year. The one she said was harmless. Kind of a dork. The guy who brought homemade brownies and talked about Dungeons and Dragons like he wasn't 40 and balding. Right. That guy was now in my bed, wearing my robe, laughing in my living room, and smiling directly into my security camera. Not accidentally, either. He knew it was there. He grinned into it, cocky, like a man who thought I was too blind to ever look. That smile was rehearsed, practiced, like he wanted me to see him eventually. As if this was a performance and the camera, my camera, was his audience. That was the moment it shifted. It wasn't an affair. It was occupation. A silent coup. She hadn't just slept with someone. She'd replaced me in my own goddamn home. Piece by piece. I sat in that stiff hotel chair staring at the screen, every instinct in my body screaming to call her, call him, drive home, burst through the door, flip the table. But I didn't move. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't break the mug I was holding. Because rage is loud, and loud gets caught. I decided right then that if they wanted a performance, I'd give them one. Just not the kind they expected. And yeah, before I go on, let me say this. If you've made it this far and you're not subscribed yet, do it now. Over 90% of people listening never hit the button, but it helps the team keep building these stories with everything we've got. And trust me, this one's just getting started. So I sat there, and I started thinking like a man with nothing left to lose, but a whole lot to take back. I minimized the camera app, opened my email, typed one sentence to my attorney. Need to confirm something about homeownership terms. I hit send. Then I poured myself another hotel-grade cup of coffee and opened my notes app. First bullet point. He thinks he's clever. Second bullet. She forgot who installed the system. Third. Time to make them remember. I watched the man scratch himself while standing in front of my refrigerator, door wide open, like he was deciding what my groceries would offer him today. Eggs. Spinach. My leftover lasagna, the one I made Sunday before my trip, labeled with a sticky note. Don't forget lunch. She didn't forget. She fed it to him. He wiped his mouth with a dish towel my mom gave us for Christmas. The one with the embroidered rooster she hated. Ugly, but useful, she said. Apparently useful enough to dab wine off her boyfriend's chin after they toasted each other on my couch. I scrubbed further. He wasn't just visiting. He lived there. Different sets of clothes. Gym bag. Toiletry kit lined up on the bathroom counter next to mine, beside mine, not replacing it. Like they left my stuff there deliberately, as set dressing. The props of a husband she no longer needed but hadn't bothered to throw out. One clip, from 2 weeks ago, she's walking around in my hoodie, the one she always said smelled like me. He grabs the back of it and pulls her in for a kiss. She giggles and says, "It's weird when you wear his stuff, you know." He shrugs. "It's just fabric. Who cares?" I do. I cared. More than they ever knew. He played piano in the evenings. My piano. Badly too. A slow, smug version of Imagine, while she fake sang along. Eyes closed like this was some romantic comedy and not 2 parasites lounging in the skin of my life. And she loved it. Her laugh in those clips, it wasn't the soft one she used with me. It was sharp, indulgent. She kept grabbing his hand, leading him to the bedroom like she was giving tours, showing off the upgrades. I watched her yank open drawers I built, stand barefoot on the hardwood I installed, use the closet I designed and say, "It's big enough for 2, like I'd never existed. But I had. I built that existence. He wore my robe like a goddamn crown. And the worst part? That smile. That stupid, smug, camera-aware smile he tossed at the hallway lens every damn time they passed. Sometimes he waved. Once, he saluted. As if to say, "You watching this, buddy?" Oh, I was watching. That's when the temperature inside me dropped 20 degrees. Shock drained into something cleaner, colder. Not rage. Rage is fire. This was ice. Surgical. Strategic. This wasn't cheating. This was conquest. They hadn't just snuck around. They'd built a routine. Woken up together. Showered. Drank coffee. He even opened a package addressed to me. Ripped it open on camera, pulled out my new running shoes, tried one on, and laughed when it didn't fit. "Guess I'm not him," he said. "No, you're not. And you're about to find out why that matters." She had no idea I could see any of this. She probably thought I'd never look, that I was too checked out or distracted to notice how often she worked late. But I'd been watching longer than she knew. Maybe not through cameras, but through silence. Through the way she stopped looking up from her phone when I came home. Through how she started locking the bathroom door. Through how she forgot to wear her ring, but always remembered her perfume. They both forgot something crucial. I might have been away on business, but I never left the house. Not really. Because I built that house. I paid for every inch of it, chose every wire and tile, every camera angle. The walls don't lie, and neither do recordings. The footage wasn't proof of a fling. It was evidence of a routine, which meant it had legal value. She didn't know about the retention clause I activated years ago, that every camera in the house stored footage remotely. She assumed she could erase it. She even disabled the motion alerts. But she missed something small. One backup system. A secondary server, hidden behind the wall panel in my garage. I built it during lockdown, mostly out of boredom. Called it my digital panic room. Guess who never once asked what it did? And now, I had every angle, every timestamp, every smirk. They had each other. But I had the hard drive. And when it comes to war, I'll take data over pillow talk any day. The airport was still dark when I landed. One of those early arrivals where the taxi line smells like old coffee and everyone's face looks like they slept inside a blender. I didn't bring luggage. Just a backpack with my laptop, some documents, and the same hoodie I'd worn on the plane. I hadn't shaved. I looked like a man who'd been left behind in every sense of the word. But underneath that, I felt sharper than I had in years. I didn't go home. Instead, I parked at the end of the block and waited. She was nothing if not predictable. Morning gym routine. Always left the house around 6:15 with that reusable water bottle she made me buy because plastic is poison. I watched the garage open. Her SUV backed out. She never looked up. Then the garage shut. And about 5 minutes later, the front door opened again. He stepped out, barefoot, wearing one of my white bath towels like he'd just finished conquering a small nation. He stretched his arms like a man who owned the morning. I could see the steam still curling from his hair. He was humming something. Sounded like that same off-key John Lennon melody from the footage. He turned his face to the sun, smiled, and walked back inside. I didn't move, just stared at the closed door for a long while. Let it all settle. What he thought was his, what she allowed, and what I was about to take back without saying a single word. I pulled into a cafe 2 blocks over. Nobody paid attention to the guy in the corner with bloodshot eyes and a laptop. I connected to Wi-Fi, logged into the smart home dashboard I hadn't touched in years, and got to work. First tap, override all access codes. Second tap, set new passcode. Something poetic. Third tap, disable garage remote, her phone included. Fourth, revoke guest Wi-Fi access, just because. The system asked, "Are you sure you want to proceed?" I smiled. Tapped yes. Then I made a call to a locksmith I'd used years ago when I first bought the place. "How soon can you get here?" I asked. "Doors and deadbolts. Need it done before 9. He grunted. "If you've got coffee, I'm already halfway there." By 8:40 a.m., I stood inside my own foyer, listening to the metallic clink of new locks being set. The air inside the house felt foreign, like I'd broken into my own life. I could still smell her lavender shampoo lingering in the hallway. His cologne too. Cheap, artificial, overpowering. The scent of entitlement. I didn't touch anything. I didn't snoop. This wasn't about discovering more. I'd seen enough. This was reclamation. The locksmith gave me the new keys. "You changing roommates?" he asked with a smirk. "Evicting squatters," I replied, deadpan. He laughed, didn't ask more, and left. I closed the door behind him, turned the lock, and stood there in the silence of my own kitchen. The mug rack was empty, my favorite one missing. I found it later in the dishwasher, still wet. Lipstick on the rim. Not her shade. I poured myself a glass of water. Sat at the table where I'd once signed birthday cards, tax documents, and anniversary letters. Now, I was plotting an exit wound. Not just for me, for them. My phone buzzed. Motion detected. Backdoor attempted entry, access denied. It was 9:17 a.m. I leaned back in the chair, sipping slowly, and waited for the calls to start. She'd be confused. He'd be furious. I'd be silent. Because sometimes silence isn't weakness. Sometimes it's strategy. The next morning, I shaved. Not because I had somewhere to be, but because I wanted to look calm when I dismantled their little fantasy. You don't go to war in wrinkled clothes. I put on a crisp button-down, the same one I wore to sign the mortgage papers 8 years ago, and drove straight to the county clerk's office. No one there knew what was about to unfold. The woman at the counter, early 50s, wore a sunflower pin and asked how she could help. I gave her my name, address, and told her I wanted to confirm the ownership structure of the property. She clicked around for a minute, printed a few pages, and handed them to me. Name on the deed, mine. Name on the mortgage, mine. Addendums, shared ownership claims, postnuptial transfers? None. I nodded. Could you notarize a copy? Of course, she said, oblivious. I left with a folder labeled Owner Documents and drove straight to my attorney's office downtown. Ethan had been on retainer since the early days of my consulting firm. Smart, discreet, expensive. The kind of guy who never needed to raise his voice because the paperwork always did it for him. He closed the door behind us, looked at the documents, and raised an eyebrow. You sure you want to go nuclear? I'm already 3 miles past that, I replied. Her name's not on anything, he said, flipping through the pages. Not the deed, not the utilities, not even the trash bill. She brought him into the house. Repeatedly, I said. He's living there like it's his Airbnb. You think I'm going to keep footing the bill while he lounges around in my goddamn bathrobe? Ethan smiled, the kind of smile that comes right before a lawsuit. All right, we'll draft a notice of eviction. You're within every legal right to serve it, given the lack of tenancy agreement. Especially since you can prove he's not a listed resident. And her, she can stay if you let her. But you don't have to. I won't. He paused, tapping his pen. You want me to file it quietly? No, I said. I want him to feel it. I want her to explain it. And I want them both to realize just how fragile their little world was. I walked out of his office with a digital copy of the draft in my inbox. Title, Notice of Unauthorized Occupation and Intent to Evict. That same afternoon, I returned home and updated the smart security settings. Every entrance and hallway camera now had motion alerts set to immediate. Audio was enabled. Notifications routed straight to my phone. I stood in the living room, my living room, and ran a test. Walked past the kitchen doorway. My phone buzzed instantly. Perfect. I placed one of the wedding photos back on the hallway table. A decoy. A memory trap. It wasn't sentiment. It was bait. Something for him to mock again, like he had before. Only this time, when he did, I'd have his face in crystal clarity. I even left one of my jackets hanging by the door. Another trigger. If he so much as touched it, I'd know. This wasn't about catching them anymore. It was about documenting, timestamping, building a file so airtight a judge wouldn't even bother reading past the first page. She'd made our home into a playground. He'd moved in like a tenant with rights. Now I was going to show them what happens when you forget who signs the mortgage. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't slam any doors. Just a quiet signature. A few lines of code. And a man waiting, patiently, for the trap to spring. At exactly 9:12 p.m., the first alert hit my phone. Back door. Movement detected. Human form. Camera 3. I was parked where I had been every night for the past 3 days. Half a block up, engine off. A bag of takeout untouched in the passenger seat. I clicked into the live feed, and there he was. Grocery bags in both hands, shoulders hunched forward like he belonged there. Like he was doing his weekly run for his house. Behind him, Cassie followed, phone glowing in her hand, laughing at something he'd said, eyes locked on the screen. They looked like a couple deep into domestic autopilot. Comfortable, casual, sickeningly synchronized. They made their way into the kitchen. He opened the fridge, started unloading. She pulled out 2 wine glasses from the cabinet, my cabinet, then leaned against the counter like she was hosting a goddamn cooking show. The camera angle caught everything. They weren't hiding anymore. Not that they ever really had. Then came the moment. He moved to the living room, set the last bag down on the coffee table, looked around, and saw it. The photo. Our wedding day. Framed in silver. The one she'd kept on the console table near the stairs. The one we almost didn't take because she said her makeup was off. I kept it anyway because it was the only candid moment from the whole event that felt real. He picked it up, paused, stared at it, then smiled. Not the smug, camera-aware smirk from before. This one was quieter, pitying, as if he were looking at the relic of a man who no longer existed. He laid it face down on the table. That was it. No more watching. No more collecting. I started the engine. Pulled away slowly. Didn't look back. 20 minutes later, I walked into the sheriff's department. The place was dead quiet. A single deputy sat behind the glass divider, scrolling through his phone. I told him I needed to file for criminal trespass and unlawful occupation. He raised an eyebrow. Someone break in? He asked. No, I said. They think they live there. That got his attention. I handed over the folder. Deed. Camera screenshots. Timestamped footage. The eviction draft Ethan sent me. Printouts of her texts saying, I'll be at your place tonight. Not our place. Your place. He called in a supervisor. A woman with tired eyes and the calm efficiency of someone who's seen far worse. She reviewed the documents, looked up at me, and said, This is clean. You want to pursue this officially? Yes, I replied, as formally and thoroughly as the law allows. She nodded. Then we'll need a statement. And a few signatures. While I signed, I got another motion alert. Camera 4. Upstairs hallway. They were probably in my bedroom by now. It didn't matter. Because the moment I walked out of that building, they were no longer squatters in a gray area. They were occupants of a house whose legal owner had initiated the process to remove them. The deputy handed me a stamped copy of the complaint. This'll go to the civil division by morning. After that, they'll be served. If they resist, we escalate. Good, I said. On the way home, I passed by the house again. No lights on upstairs. Just the warm, yellow glow of the living room, flickering slightly from the TV. Some movie playing. Some laughter. Hers, probably. I didn't stop. I just watched the footage from earlier one more time. The frame. His face. The deliberate flip. They thought that was power. They had no idea what was coming. It was a Thursday morning when my phone buzzed. An unknown number, but the area code was local. I didn't pick up at first. Let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again. Same number. Curiosity beat out spite. I answered. Why won't the garage open? Cassie's voice, flat, controlled, like she was trying not to sound panicked. Because you don't live there anymore, I said, not even looking up from my coffee. Silence. Then, what are you talking about? I didn't raise my voice. Didn't explain. I opened my email app, found the PDF, and hit send. Subject line, per legal counsel, notice of revocation of informal tenancy. It hit her inbox before she could say another word. I waited. Then I heard the ping of her email notification through the line, followed by breathing, sharp, uneven. What the hell is this? She hissed. It's the start of what you've earned, I said. She snapped. You coward. You didn't even talk to me. You're just hiding behind lawyers? That's who you are now. No, I replied. That's who I've always been. You just mistook quiet for weakness. A second later, a different voice came on the line. Him. You're pathetic, he said, laughing like this was all just drama he could outsmirk. This house was dead before I came in. She was done with you. Everyone knew it, but you. I smiled, leaned back in my chair, and took a slow sip from the mug he'd probably used. Still using my towels? I asked casually. How's that cheap cologne mixing with the scent of eviction notice? He scoffed. You've got nothing. Check your texts, I said. I had his number from one of the older security alerts, back when Cassie forgot to disable geotags on her phone. They thought they'd scrubbed the metadata. They hadn't. He hung up. 2 minutes later, another call. Same number. I declined it. Then again. Declined. Then the messages started. You think you're going to scare me with paperwork? It's her house too, you freak. You're sick. You need help. I let them stack up. Then I replied with a single image. A screenshot. Top of the page. Notice of upcoming deposition. Criminal trespass, unlawful entry, intent to misappropriate property. Below that, my name, the attorney's name, the county court seal. Dated. Signed. Served. I saw the read, receipt pop up instantly. Then silence. For the first time since this began, they stopped calling. No rage texts. No voicemails. No attempted apologies. Nothing. Just digital quiet. Because up until that moment, they thought this was personal, emotional, messy, something they could twist into another argument, another round of manipulation. But once the legal hammer dropped, once they saw that this wasn't about who loved who or who lied first, but about property, statutes, charges, they understood they were playing a game they couldn't win. They were used to winning by charm, by heat, by leverage. This time, the weapon wasn't volume. It was paper, procedure, strategy. I was done with feelings. Now it was math. And math doesn't care if you cry. Saturday morning, I opened the front door to a sky that looked like it couldn't decide whether to rain or burn. Gray. Silent. Fitting. The moving truck pulled up right on time. 8:01 a.m. No flashy logos. Just plain white with two guys in matching shirts and expressions that said, "We've seen worse." One of them looked at the deputy standing beside me and gave a slight nod. This wasn't their first eviction either. "I've got the itemized list," I said, handing over the inventory sheet I spent the last 2 nights assembling with surgical precision. Cassie's clothes, her shoes, the 6 boxes of skincare products I never understood, the rolling garment rack she bought for her spring reset, even the framed quote she hung in the bedroom. "Only love lives here." "Sure it does." The deputy, Officer Delgado, confirmed the paperwork. He'd already seen the court authorization, the revocation of informal tenancy, the cease and desist letter. Everything was in order. Clinical. Legal. By 8:30 a.m., they had the guest room half emptied. By 9:15, the main closet was cleared. Her side, anyway. I told them to leave mine untouched. Let the space feel lopsided. A small imbalance in favor of the person who still lived there. By 10 o'clock, the sheets were bagged, double-knotted, and dragged out like biohazard waste. I wasn't about to donate anything that had absorbed him, the robe he loved, into a metal bin in the backyard. I poured lighter fluid on it, struck a match, and let it smolder while the last few bags made their way to the curb. It burned fast, pathetically fast, like it had been waiting for an ending. At 10:37 a.m., she showed up, not in her gym clothes or business casual armor. This time, it was sweatpants and a ratty hoodie, hair pulled back in a way that said she hadn't slept. Or maybe had, just not well. She didn't see me at first. She saw the lawn. Cardboard boxes, suitcase, garment bags. Her life reduced to categories and compartments. One of the movers was labeling a bin. Bathroom, miscellaneous, lipsticks and contacts. She froze, then saw me, then the deputy. Then she snapped. "You can't do this," she hissed, marching toward me. "You can't just throw me out of my own." "You're what?" Delgado interrupted, stepping between us. Calm but firm. "Ma'am, please stay behind the tape." "What tape?" she screamed. As if summoned by the words, the second officer dropped a neon orange plastic divider right between us. "This one," he said deadpan. "I live here," she snapped. Delgado didn't even look up. He simply held out a single paper. "Court order. Signed. Stamped." Her hands shook when she read it. "You're seriously doing this? After everything?" I tilted my head. "Yes. After everything. No discussion. No closure. No face-to-face like adults. You chose your closure the second he walked into my kitchen in my clothes drinking my coffee. We're way past the adult part." She turned toward the porch like she was expecting him to come out. Like he'd rescue her, or at least pretend to. But the front door was locked. And the coward never showed. Maybe he was still sleeping off the night before. Maybe he saw the patrol cars and bailed. Maybe he finally realized this wasn't just pillow talk anymore. It was war. Either way, she stood there alone. She lunged for a box labeled kitchen, spices/mugs. "At least let me take." "Careful," Delgado warned. "This is a civil process. Don't escalate it into something worse." She froze. Looked at me one more time. Her lip trembled, just slightly. But no tears came. I don't think she had any left. Or maybe she knew I wouldn't buy them. Neighbors were watching. I could feel it. Curtains twitched. Porch blinds shifted. A lawnmower across the street cut off mid-row and never restarted. Tom was on his porch, pretending to be checking his sprinkler system. He wasn't. He caught my eye and gave a short, silent nod. One of those quiet masculine gestures that carried weight. I saw. "I know. You did right." I nodded back and said nothing. Not to her. Not to them. Not to myself. Because what do you say to the woman who handed your house to a stranger like it was a weekend rental? What do you say when you take your life back? Nothing. You let the sound of packing tape, dragging boxes, and police radio static say it for you. By noon, the lawn was cleared. The truck pulled away. The deputies followed. And I locked the door behind me. New locks, new codes, new rules. The house was quiet again. But the neighborhood? It would never look at her the same. And me? I didn't raise my voice once. Didn't slam a single door. But they all knew. The man of the house was back. I didn't plan to look again. After the boxes were gone, after the last patrol car disappeared down the street and the locks had that satisfying final click, I thought I'd be done with it. That the silence would be enough. That ownership, once restored, would erase the itch. But the next morning, while pouring a black coffee into a clean mug, the first untouched one in weeks, I felt it. That crawl. That sense that there was one more thing they thought they got away with. So I pulled up the archive. Camera 1, front porch. Nothing. Camera 2, garage. Empty. Camera 4, upstairs hallway. Still. Camera 3, Living room. Timestamp, Friday night. 11:42 p.m., roughly 9 hours before the moving truck arrived. And there they were, dancing. No music. Just two silhouettes swaying like fools in the middle of my living room. She was barefoot. He wore socks with some kind of cartoon print. Probably another one of his quirky charms she used to roll her eyes at. Now it made her laugh. She was wearing something oversized. Took me a second to realize what it was. My college sweatshirt. The faded navy blue one with the cracked white lettering, the one I used to wear on weekends when we were broke and happy and thought coupons were a game, not survival. I hadn't seen it in months. She'd kept it, and now wore it while slow dancing with the man she replaced me with, in the same spot where we used to put up the Christmas tree. Then he broke away, picked up the bottle of whiskey on the table, my bottle, the one I was saving for our anniversary that never came. He poured 2 glasses, held one up, turned directly to the camera, and smiled. "Thanks for the house, man," he whispered, lifting the glass in a mock toast. They clinked. She giggled. Then they kissed, again, as if nothing in the world could touch them. That was his mistake. Not the kiss. Not the dance. Not even the sweatshirt. The toast. The arrogance of it. The performance. The fact that he still thought the cameras were just background noise. That I'd never really see him. That I hadn't built the stage he now danced on. I downloaded the clip. Trimmed the start and end. No edits. No music. Just 32 seconds of pure, distilled hubris. Saved it to my desktop. Named it closure.mp4. I sat for a while, staring at the file icon. It looked so small. So harmless. Then I opened a blank email. 2. His wife's email, still listed on their public holiday card site. The one where they pretended to be perfect. Subject: thought you should see where your husband's been. No message body. Just the file. Attached. Sent. I didn't check if she opened it. I didn't need a reply. Some things don't need acknowledgement. Some things just need to detonate. I closed the laptop, stood up, and went outside for a walk. The air was crisp, lighter. For the first time in weeks, I could smell my own grass without gagging. Not because I'd forgotten, but because I'd finished. No mercy, no explanations. Just truth, documented, time-stamped, and forwarded. It came quietly, like all true consequences do. Exactly 1 week to the day after I sent the file, I was walking out of the hardware store, picking up a new set of curtain rods and a deadbolt for the basement door, when my phone buzzed. Cassie. I hadn't heard from her since the lawn meltdown. No calls. No texts. Radio silence. But now, there it was, her name, still saved in my phone because I didn't care enough to change it. Not anymore. I didn't open it right away. Sat in the car with the engine off, the bag of hardware still on the passenger seat. Then, finally, curiosity won. Text number 1. His wife left him. Took the kids. He lost custody. No greeting. No punctuation. Just impact. Text number 2 followed seconds later. Why would you do this? I stared at the screen for a long moment. Thought about replying with the footage again. Thought about the nights I sat watching them laugh in my living room. Thought about the secondhand mugs, the borrowed robe, the toasts, the smirks, the way he used my name like a punchline. But I didn't need any of that. So I typed one line. Simple. True. You let a stranger into my bed. I just let the truth into yours. Delivered. Read. No response. And that was the last time I ever heard from her. I didn't block her. I didn't need to. Some silences are permanent. You don't have to slam a door when they already know it's never opening again. Later that week, a friend of a friend from her company called me. Not for gossip, just a quiet heads up. He'd been suspended. Internal policy violation. Company device used on personal property. Unauthorized presence during work-related travel. Security concerns. Undermining trust was the phrasing, I believe. HR didn't contact me, but someone did. I imagine it was his wife, once she recovered from the shock. Or maybe someone in legal, after they saw the date stamps and cross-referenced his calendar. Doesn't really matter. What mattered is this. I didn't have to say a word. Didn't show up at his office. Didn't call in a complaint. Didn't pound my chest or send out mass emails like some unhinged ex-husband in a soap opera. I just let the truth breathe. Truth doesn't need backup. It walks in quiet. Shuts doors loud. People like him thrive on shadows, on things left unsaid, on silence, on people like me swallowing the humiliation so they can keep playing house. But this time, the shadows turned on him. And the silence? That became his indictment. I went online a few days later to check something minor, my grocery rewards points, of all things, and saw that the whiskey brand he toasted with was running a Father's Day campaign. One of those to the men who build homes kind of ads. I laughed, then closed the tab. I'd built a home. He'd squatted in it. Now he was jobless, wifeless, and, from what I'd heard, renting a two-bedroom near the interstate with no custody and no clue how it all fell apart so fast. But I knew. It wasn't revenge. It was restoration. Of ownership. Of truth. Of peace. And I didn't lift a single finger to push the first domino. I just let him lean on the wrong one. I hadn't thought about them in weeks. Life had moved on. Cleaner, quieter, sharpened. I spent my mornings walking the neighborhood, waving to Tom, who now nodded with more than just sympathy. He nodded with respect. The lawn was greener, the house brighter. There were new sheets on the bed, new locks on every door, and not a single item in that house had been chosen by anyone but me. Peace wasn't just possible, it was present. Until 4 p.m. on the dot, 3 months to the day since the last box hit the sidewalk. My phone rang. Unknown number. No name, no city tag, just 10 digits and a strange tightness in my chest. I answered. "Sir, this is Andrew. I believe we've met." His voice was nothing like the one that used to laugh into my security cameras. No smugness. No bite. Just thin, like it had been wrung out and hung up to dry. The man who once toasted in my living room with my whiskey now sounded like he hadn't had a solid meal or a full night's sleep in weeks. "I don't know what you told my wife," he started, breathing hard like the words weighed something. "But, please, I'm ruined." Silence. "You win, all right," he said, choking out a nervous laugh that didn't land. "I've lost everything. My job. My house. My kids won't talk to me. They think I'm some invader. Do you know what that feels like?" Yes, I did. But I didn't say it. "I mean, Jesus, man," he continued. "You didn't have to do all that. We were stupid, sure, but we didn't deserve this. Cassie's a wreck. I'm a wreck. Isn't that enough for you?" Still, I said nothing. He waited. Then finally, "Don't you have anything to say?" I looked at the screen. 4 p.m. Exactly. I took a breath and said, calm as a lake, "You'll understand why I chose this time." And I hung up. No curses. No threats. No long monologue. Just click. I stared at the screen for a second longer, watching the blinking cursor of the missed call, frozen in place. Then I turned it face down on the table and went back to what I was doing, refinishing the front steps. That phone stayed silent the rest of the day, and I knew he wouldn't call again, because it wasn't the sound of the phone that got him. It was the silence after. The silence of a man who thought he was just passing through someone else's story, only to realize too late that he was the one being written out, that he was the guest overstaying his welcome, that he had mistaken his part for permanence. But now, every 4 p.m., for the rest of his life, he'll wonder, will the phone ring again? What else does he know? What else did I miss? He'll stare at his screen the way I stared at mine, back when I watched him drink from my mug and kiss my wife like the house was already his. He'll wait for justice. But justice won't call back. It already did.